County patients. We don't get any money from Caroline County, but we do it because it's the right thing to do, and I urge you to do the right thing tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board in favor of or in opposition to the special exception request? Ms. Best, I want to remind you, I'm going to hold you to 3 minutes, so please, if you have comments written,
I've got it written, I'm going to read it. Tammy Best, Port Royal. Mr. Chairman and members of the board, I'm opposed to the approval of this major home occupancy. And one area of critical concern to me is the movement of the explosives on and off the applicant's property. While we have heard that SEP owner on several occasions that he procures his explosives out of state and brings them into Caroline County under approval permits from the ATF, I wish to call attention to the most recent ATF report dated 7/10/2012 that on page 1 of 7 explains as part of SEP's business profile that all display fireworks are to be delivered directly to the event site as the permittee does not have the approved placards for transporting explosives in interstate commerce. This is a factual statement from the ATF, and it seems to contradict Mr. Walters' previous statements and begs one to ask if SEP employees have the proper certifications required by the Commonwealth, namely a commercial driver's license with a hazmat endorsement and the same signs required for interstate transport, which he told the ATF he does not have, to legally transport those explosives within this state. My guess is they don't have them. And if the county approves the storage of these explosives that are subsequently transported off the site and later cited in a fire or traffic-related incident, how capable is the county going to be? Because you allowed the storage and no one cared about how they transport these fireworks. Sorry, I can't get my pages apart here. While this county assumes that everyone permitted to store explosives is doing it safely and according to the rules, it's paramount that the expected compliance is validated periodically. Nobody in this county has any clue as to whether they're storing them properly, whether they're transporting them properly. And at some point, if you allow this storage and transportation, the county is going to be held liable when there is an accident. We've seen people come out of that driveway and not even look, and there's cars coming around the curve. We just had a contractor at the house that told us he just closed his eyes and prayed when that car pulled out in front of him that no one was coming because he had to go in the other lane to keep from hitting the vehicle. If that vehicle had been full of explosives and he hit it, that's a pretty bad accident.
His best response. Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board in favor of or in opposition to this request?
Good evening. If it's all right, I'll get over here.
Good evening.
Is everyone doing all right?
Evening.
I would like to just answer any questions that anybody may have, or take this opportunity to address the board in any other fashion that you may have for me.
Walker, I saw that there was one other lady that wanted to speak. Afterwards, I'm sure the board's going to have some questions, either of you or staff or newsletters or whoever. But if you would, let us, everyone else has had an opportunity to speak, and then we'll certainly have the question and answer period.
Sure.
All right? Thank you.
Gladly.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the board on this issue?
Good evening. How are you? I just wanted to speak in opposition of this. I don't believe that it's something that the county should allow, we haven't done it before. There's a lot of unanswered questions or answers that have not exactly lined up. I think it would be a great liability, and just would be against it.
For the record, name and vote.
Oh, I'm sorry, Karen Lambert, Reedy.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the board in favor of or in opposition to the special exception request? Last call. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board in favor of or in opposition to the special exception request? Hearing no further comment, public hearing is closed. Suspension? Board have any questions on suspension?
I do, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Fincham, in the issue of the occupancy of the business with regard to a home business application.
Yes, sir.
Right. Is the business located in the home, or just how does that work? Are they meeting the requirements as far as location is concerned?
Ultimately, I think that's a judgment call of the board. The ordinance speaks to the standards, and it says conducted in a home and one or more accessory structures. Obviously, the fireworks have to be stored in an accessory structure. You would not be allowed to store fireworks in a home. I believe we vetted this issue with the county attorney's office concerning the applicability of the use with the home occupation permit, and we all felt comfortable that this met the standards for a home occupation permit, which is why I believe it's here before you tonight.
So in your opinion, based on the staff is saying that they meet that requirement? We feel that it qualifies as a home occupation, yes, sir. Whether the board feels that it meets the standards specified for a home occupation, that's a decision that the board has to make. Okay. All right. Let's talk about, well, maybe I'll ask Mr. Newstetter. According to the home occupation, we're told that there can be no more than 5 employees, but we've heard that you have 8. Can you explain that?
There are never more than 3 on the property at any given time. The other people are casual labor. Okay. And mostly volunteers, actually. Okay. So then you don't have 8 employees then? Well, you could count them as employees, but they're really volunteers. They do come and help. Jake has a lot of people that like to come and help him. But, you know, we do need people to help move things sometimes. But I can't say that I've ever seen more than 3, not counting Jake and myself, on the property at one time. Okay. Okay. Let's talk about the magazine. Okay. Okay. Well, let me ask the fire chief also. Could you come up for a moment, please? Okay. Have you been to the site, or someone from your office?
I've been to the site.
All right. And as far as the magazines are concerned, and as far as safety is concerned, and I know there were lots of things in the report, but I just need you to specify if you feel as though professionally they are in a safe environment, and do they meet all the state requirements?
Most definitely they meet all the state requirements. They are designed for that purpose, to store fireworks. So I have no problems with the storage of fireworks on that property and the way they're being stored.
All right, I just had one last question, and I guess this would be for you. as far as transporting of the fireworks to and from the property, how much, I guess, responsibility does the county have for how they get there and who brings them and so forth? Is that something that should that be contingent on the issuing of this special permit, or are we just concerned with the storage once it gets on the property and while it's there?
That's a lot of questions within that question. The organization that is responsible for governing the transportation of fireworks up and down the road in this state is going to be the state police and the Division of Motor Vehicles, all right, as well as the ATF, whatever permitting requirements they have when fireworks are moving interstate. As far as our office is concerned, that's not something we could ever enforce. That's not under the fire code in Virginia. So I'm not able to answer your question whether that's a good thing or not.
Okay. So. But it does not impact whether or not we decide to give this special exception. I mean, and what I'm saying is I can't deny this special exception because someone who brings them there may not have a license to transport fireworks.
I mean, I think from the board's perspective, you can look at the fact that this home occupancy would have fireworks at some point coming to the property and leaving the property. You would have to assume that it's doing and being done properly or have that inspected as far as that piece goes. But I can't answer that question directly.
Okay. But we don't have jurisdiction over that. Yes, sir.
May I address the board?
Certainly.
In regards to this, the way the DOT, Department of Transportation, U.S. DOT rules say, you're allowed to transport up to 1,000 pounds of consumer-grade fireworks without being placarded. Any person can drive up to Pennsylvania and buy $1,000 worth of fireworks at Phantom Fireworks and drive it all across 50 contiguous states or 48 contiguous states as they deem appropriate for personal or for professional use. When you start transporting class 1.3, the professional grade fireworks, that's when you need your DOT certification, your hazmat license. Unless you are an ATF licensee transporting for non-commerce purposes, in which case you are allowed to transport your own professional fireworks. You do still need to be placarded, but you are allowed to transport them on just your standard driver's license, so long as it is only for non-commercial purposes. And as for what I do, 95% of my displays are all done with consumer-grade fireworks that any person could go up to Pennsylvania or South Carolina and purchase over the counter on their own. And I just happen to put them together in a tasteful manner, transport them in a safe way, way less than 1,000 pounds for any display or for stocking up of my magazines.
Okay. All right. I just have one more question. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Let me just interject something. When you buy fireworks in Pennsylvania and you bring them to Virginia, you're committing a crime. So so just make sure that's clear. You can transport them, but once you possess them in Virginia, you'll see the sheriff.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
And the professional fireworks that I do use, the other 5% of my shows are purchased from a professional display distributor, and they then just deliver them to my site on the day of that I need them. I don't need to store professional fireworks. I have a magazine to mainly store consumer fireworks.
Okay. Let me ask you this. What about the capacity or the amount of fireworks that are going to be stored there? Can you speak to that?
Yes. It's the way that you go about regulating how much is stored is the amount of weight possible versus the distance that you have. There's a table of distance in the ATF Orange Book is what it's called, and that basically sets forth the guidelines for how much weight of the explosives you plan on having versus how far away it needs to be from another storage magazine or a inhabited building, road, railway.
And you have 2 containers.
Yes, one is, they're right next to each other. If you ask the ATF, they're considered as one since they're joined. But one is for storing of display fireworks, and one is for storing of consumer fireworks.
Okay. That's all I have for right now.
And I believe in the paperwork, it has shown that these aren't a 20-foot shipping container. It's not even. This is a 5-foot by 7-foot by 8-foot box. Smaller than most people's walk-in closet.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I have a lot of them. So just going back to a couple of things that I think Mr. Taylor had spoken to. So you do not have any special license from the U.S. Department of Transportation, correct? You do not need one because you're, okay.
Because, frankly, I can't drive.
Right, okay. Well, does your when it's shipped, I understand that, but
When it's shipped by another company that delivers it to the site that I need it at, or I transport only consumer fireworks less than 1,000 pounds at a time.
and do they have the license from the U.S. DOT, then the other company?
The other company, yes, it is always placarded and insured and driven under a hazmat plan.
Okay. Now, how often, I saw in here, one of the things I was impressed with, how often does the ATF and the state fire marshals, how often would there be an inspection?
ATF is required to inspect once every 3 years. I've had them come out twice in the past 2 years. State fire marshal, I'm in contact with him not only for the magazine, but just for other regulatory things 3 or 4 times a year. And he's willing, he's already come out to the magazine once, and invite him out anytime he feels that he needs to come out and inspect.
Okay. And as far as the storage of these things, when you have an event, let's say it's 4th of July, whatever event you have, what?
I think it'll reach. It won't reach.
I can come over to the other side.
How often, I guess the question is, how long do these stay in storage? Like if, let's say, for example, you're going to be setting something off on 4th of July, you're going to have a big show on the 4th of July. When would you ship them down, and how long would they stay in the container before, on whatever day you have your event?
Well, for instance, for a 4th of July, that's going to be a big event. That's going to be using only the professional size shells. That thing, I wouldn't get that even delivered to Petmire Hill Road, Bell Hill. I would get that delivered right to the display site. Hypothetically, if I was doing it for Caroline County, the Kellners or American Fireworks, the distributor that I deal with, I'd make an order from them in March or February even. If I knew how early I would. And then they would come and deliver it July 4th, early morning, and I will sign for it and be on site as soon as it gets delivered. And once it's delivered, that's when we start loading and setting up the show. As far as the fireworks that I keep there, I'll order, those are for much smaller shows, say weddings and family events, things like that. And those are, again, the consumer grade fireworks. Those are the ones that you guys could go out to Pennsylvania and purchase yourself. You'd be in trouble when you got back here and try to light them off in your backyard. But that's what I'm here for. You can hire me and I'll insure the show and provide all the proper fireworks and all that stuff for you.
And that brings up another point that I have. Can you talk about your insurance for a second? Your company insurance?
Yes, sir.
Can you, just explain what your insurance is?
Yes. I thought you were going to ask me a question about it. Yeah, I have, it's through Ryder, Rosemacher, McHugh in Houston. The Scottsdale is the underwriter. It's a $1 million general liability policy, which is what's generally required throughout most cities throughout the state, except for Fairfax County, I believe, requires a $5 million policy. This is required for general display insurance. It covers me for my negligence if I do anything that would cause an explosion or cause any bodily damage, any damage to a business or property, in anything going along with the with my business. It covers the magazine. If for somehow I was negligent and left it unlocked and little Johnny gets over there and lights off something and it ends up exploding, it covers if I'm doing a fireworks display and a shell comes back down and lands near the audience. That would be a negligent thing because I somehow had the audience too close, that it was close enough for a shell to land near them. Now, most of these are not going to happen because I never leave it unlocked. I never have an audience within anywhere close enough that they could have a fallout land on them. As far as the insurance goes, yeah. Do you have any specific questions?
No, I think you've answered pretty much everything. I really do appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Walter. Can you, you say you have, according to the report, you have a Type 19 license?
Yes.
Can you explain the difference between the 19 and 54?
Yes, the Type 19 is a manufacturer of theatrical flash powder, and the Type 54 is the user of display fireworks. And actually, my Type 19 I am canceling this year. But let me back up a bit. My history, I had a motorcycle accident while I was with Ringling Brothers Barnum Bailey Circus as their pyrotechnician for indoor close proximate pyrotechnics. And that's what I was originally wanting to start my company doing, providing fireworks and pyrotechnics for theatrical and concerts and things like that, where it would be indoors and very tightly regulated. I've since discovered that the market is not big enough for me to support anything. So if I'm going to do a fireworks company, I might as well open it up to all fireworks rather than just that. And me allowing my Type 19, or canceling my Type 19, is because I've decided that manufacturing is not the way I want to go. I would much rather just let other companies deal with all the manufacturing, the regulations with that. I'll just buy their stuff that they've already purchased, made, and tested.
My last question, during the inspection process, how long was that inspection process?
When the fire marshal comes out and takes a look at the...
I guess this report, the explosives qualification report, that's here?
There's two different inspections. There would be the inspection after I turn in my... Before I would have put anything in the magazine, the ATF comes out and inspects that the magazine is constructed and is in a place where it's not going to cause any damage, is constructed in compliance with the code. And then further inspections would be inspections of compliance that I'm up with paperwork, I'm up with the inventory is all correct, and daily summary magazine transactions are up and accurate. And so it's a varying thing, anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour and a half, 2 hours, depending on if during the inventory inspection, if they wanted to pull everything out and actually inventory every single piece and check it versus my records, then they could do that, and that would take them 3 to 4 hours. So it's all dependent upon the inspector and how much work they want to do.
And during the inspections, have there been any violations or that?
The only, I wouldn't even call it a violation, that I had was I had storage of black powder, which is commercially available over the counter. You could go to a gun shop and purchase black powder. I had that stored in the magazine, but I did not have that on my daily summary magazine transaction. I also had a single tannerite binary exploding target, which are also commercially available. You can purchase these at Gander Mountain. I don't know if you're familiar with them. Some people were there and they were shooting the targets, and the homeowners, Patrick and Paula, told me that we were making too much noise and we might get a complaint from the neighbor or the police. We called it quits, and I wouldn't let the shooters carry a pre-made explosive off the property. Therefore, I put it in my magazine and kept it. When the fire marshal showed up, or not the fire marshal, I'm sorry, my ATF investigator showed up, he informed me that I should have written that on my daily summary transaction, even though it is a commercially available product.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
I just have two quick ones. Jake, thank you. I
Yes.
appreciate you being here.
Yes.
Therefore,
Thanks for having me.
Mrs. Newstetter, I guess. So if you want to come back, Mrs. Newstetter, if you would. It's really just a couple of quick questions. In our report, it says that your magazines are located in a heavily wooded area, 500 feet from the nearest inhabited building, which is your house, and 1,000 feet from the neighbors?
I beg your pardon?
And 1,000 feet from your neighbors?
Well over 1,000 feet, but yes.
Okay, it says approximately 1,000 feet.
It's actually by GPS. If you measure by GPS, it's closer to 1,300 feet.
Okay. And the minimum storage according to ATF was 500 feet?
That depends on what table of contents. If you're looking at the table of display fireworks, the table, it says you're supposed to be at least 200 feet from an inhabited building.
Okay, and you're twice that
Yes.
from your own building?
And, and it is also considered barricaded because it's down a hill and behind such thick wood.
Yeah, it's
With trees in
it's like
between
a
it.
200-foot elevation drop from where the house is to where the magazine is.
The
And it's surrounded
investigators-
by oak trees.
Yeah.
Okay. I've been by your house.
Mhm.
You go up a hill to where your house is,
Mhm.
and then there's a drop on the back?
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. I hadn't been in your property, so
You're welcome to come by.
that's okay. I was riding by. All right, that's one. And the last question is really, you've actually had this out there for quite some time, haven't you?
Yes, sir. It was there for 3 years. Hasn't it been 3 years? 3 years.
So you've had it out there for 3 years.
Mhm.
The ATF was checking it
Yes.
all along.
Yes.
You just didn't know there was a county issue
That is
here.
correct.
When we first started, as I looked into it, when there's no county code, you go to the next step up. So we go up to the state, and the state approves whatever counties don't have rules for.
Okay. Those are the only two I had. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Fincham. Jake, I think that's all the questions we were going to have,
Anybody else?
and appreciate it.
Thank you.
You coming out. We heard during the public hearing a lot of questioning the procedures and policies and what was going on.
Yes, sir.
Now, I'm assuming that the Planning Commission vetted this applicant or his application extremely well. But I see it was a 3-3 tie. It did not come out of the Planning Commission with a recommendation of approval. It came out with no recommendation at all because there were 3 or 4 and 3 against. What are your thoughts along as to what's been noted by Mr. Best? And he is certainly the one that brought up a lot of the issues. And I'm not talking about the personal. The personal things really I'm not going to concern myself with, okay, to be quite honest. I'm only going to concern myself with the county and its standing and making sure that we do, whether it's to approve or deny the special exception, but we do what the regulations say that we should be doing along these lines. So what are your thoughts along some of the questions that Mr. Best raised? And you heard them.
Yes, sir. I think this is a unique application and quite frankly, a unique situation. And the ordinance does not always contemplate uses either by right or by special exception. Not every use or application fits neatly within within our ordinances. I think there have been discussions that Mr. Walther lives in Stafford and has a portion of his business there, but a portion of the business is proposed to be located here as a home occupation. I don't think that's something that's necessarily contemplated in the zoning ordinance. So I think you have somewhat of a unique situation here. Having said that, I think the issue comes down to the standards contained into the special in the special exception provisions of the ordinance, and whether the board feels that this particular use meets those standards or can be conditioned to meet those standards. I don't think the storage of fireworks is something that you necessarily contemplate as I said, like a by right or by special exception use. But I also think it's so heavily regulated through ATF and the State Fire Marshal's office that they look at the risk a lot more than the county in terms of the potential impacts through their standards and things like that. In the end, I think it's ultimately a decision. Do you think this is a compatible use within the RP zoning district at this location?
I guess my concerns are, and maybe the county attorney needs to be better to address these questions, are, what's the definition of the employees? I mean, Ms. Newstetter even said that, yes, there are 8 employees, if you will, but 3 to 5 of them are probably volunteers that are not paid. Are they considered employees? The ordinance does say that a home occupation should have more than 5 employees. I don't know that it says 5 employees on site at a time. I just don't think it says that.
But, Mr. Chairman, I don't think we can call a volunteer an employee.
Well, that's what I don't know. I think the attorney has to give us that.
By definition.
I would not call a volunteer an employee. I would call
So
a paid person an employee.
All right, so Mrs. Newstetter needs to stop using the term 8 employees and start using the term 3 employees. If that's what you have, is 3 employees and the other 5 are volunteers. Or if there are 5 employees and there are 3 volunteers, then we just need to stop using those terms because it does make things confusing.
Yes.
And it does set precedents. And that's the problem I have, is the fact that if we are going to approve a special exception for a company that has 8 employees, because that's what they tell us, then why have 5 employees in the ordinance? We need to strike that and increase it to 8 or eliminate that requirement altogether. So that's what I'm trying to get at here, is the fact that this special exception is certainly for the fireworks storage, but it also impacts everything else under a major home occupation. And so that's where I'm headed with the employees. I'm sorry?
Well, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if I could just speak.
Sure.
One thing I would say is you have 8 workers. And that's where I'm going, is they may be working, but again, if they're not paid, and I can understand saying I have 8 workers, but if they're not paid as employees and they're volunteers, then I think we have to look deeper to make a decision.
And that's what I'm trying to do. She said earlier, 8 employees.
Well, Ms. Newstetter, do you have 8 employees?
No, that was best.
Right, yeah.
But you indicated that you had 8 employees early on, and then you said 5 of them or 3 of them are volunteers or whatever. And that's what I'm saying.
Okay. How many paid people do you have?
8.
How many paid people do you have?
Total of 7, including myself and Paul.
Total of how many? 7 paid.
Now, you're not related.
And that's people that I've even just paid for working one event. They don't get to come to the venue or come to the storage facility. These people, they live in Charlottesville and who've been a casual helper for one event. And granted, I'm getting paid a few $1,000 for that event. I'm going to kick back money to people who help me load that in.
What has the ordinance treat that? What does it say to the number of employees on site or number of employees of the company?
Hold on a second.
None.
No. Wait until he answers my question. I'm going to show right now, okay? When you do it next year. I know I saw what you did. But
It specifically says, an occupation conducted in a dwelling unit with or without the use of one or more accessory structures for profit in connection with their employed not more than 5 persons other than members of the immediate family residing on the premises.
okay, so
So then you couldn't count Ms. Newstetter because
Ms.
she's
Newstetter,
an
you
immediate
couldn't, but I don't know
family
if they're-
member.
I don't
You
know if they're-
couldn't count Mr. Newstetter because he's an immediate
but are
family
they part of the 7 that are being paid? Are they part of the 7 that's being paid?
Paul is being paid, yes.
Mrs. Newstetter is being paid.
You're not related?
Paul and I?
Yeah.
No. She's a sister of another mother.
She's a sister of another mother.
Yes. And Patrick's the brother of another mother.
Okay. All right.
Moving to different high schools together.
I think what we've held in the past with similar applications to the board is that this speaks to the number of employees actually reporting to
the
or
site.
working on the premises.
Okay. That's
It
all
does
I'm
not
trying to
cover off-premises employees.
Because I can tell you, we're talking about this tonight, but 2 weeks from now, we could be talking about another special exception, home occupation, and it's a whole different ballgame, and I'm not willing to get on these slippery slopes that we tried to get on a couple of weeks ago, and I'm not trying to get on one tonight. All right, so you're saying that the way that it has been interpreted in the past is 5 employees on site at the location.
Or report to the site in some manner for work.
And we have been told that there will never be more than 3 people on site or report to the site at any one time. Okay.
And you could add that as a condition if you
And
so
we could
desire.
add that as a condition.
Yes.
I would recommend that we do, if it's going to be approved, we do add that as a condition. Mr. Taylor, you have a problem with that?
No, I don't. Well, are you through?
I am through, thank you.
Okay. All right. And I've read this over and over again, and I see where it says that no more than 5 non-family members can report to the site for employment. That's basically what it says on the property. And what you're saying is that there are never more than 3. That being the case, that's not 5. So I mean, I'd
agree.
Yeah, if you have more than the number that's allotted, if you have 6, then I would never vote to approve a home occupation that has more than the number that it says. But from what I'm hearing and from what your interpretation is and what I'm reading here, she can have 5 or they can have 5. They only have 3. So I take that to mean that that at least that portion of it they are in compliance with. And I just want to make that clear. The other thing I would say in addition to that is, and we've heard a lot tonight about the storage of the fireworks and the property, and we've talked about transporting and so forth, but my concern is, number one, safety. That is my number one concern. Now, I'm concerned about all of the aspects of the special exception, and I don't want us to violate any. But, I'm convinced that there is no danger in having those fireworks stored there. I'm just convinced of that. Do we want them there? Some people may, and some people may not. But it's your property. And if you want to store fireworks there, and if we can show that there is no dangerous impact to the surrounding area, other than just everything carries with it some danger. I mean, there's a curb in the road, and 2 cars could come around in the middle of the road and have an accident, but we don't stop using the road for that. We put up speed limit signs, and we put curb signs. And I think we've dealt with the prospective danger with the magazines and the way the magazines are created, and you've met state licenses, you've met state requirements, and I've heard county officials say, I've heard the fire chief say, doesn't have a problem with it. I heard the planning director say, I don't have a problem. I'm gonna finish, man. So y'all must be quiet. I will. Okay. So at any rate, having said that, if there are no other questions or comments, I would move that we approve